Welcome back to Faith, Frauds, and Falsehoods, where we sit down and we talk about the cults and religions of the world. Tonight, we're starting our discussion on the Institute and Basic Life Principles. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and help others to find us.
Before we begin, let's make it very clear that the opinions that we present are ours alone. They do not represent the views or opinions of our respective churches or employers. Now let's begin.
Awesome.
Brian, welcome back.
Yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks, Matt. I don't know if you've looked at all of our stats, but people like us. It's great.
Like, for a last year or so, we've talked to the same three people.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden we're talking to a lot more people.
A whole lot more people. It's wonderful. It's great.
I guess people wanted to talk about the FLDS and they wanted to talk about Scientology.
Scientology. Yep. And I have a feeling they're going to want to talk about IBLP.
So why are we talking about the Institute and Basic Life Principle? Who are these folks?
So this is the Sunny Happy People. What's the
So Amazon Prime has a documentary,
right.
a show, a video. It's a series. I think there's 4
Happy
episodes.
Shiny People. There we go.
Yes, called Happy Shiny People.
Yeah.
This is a non-denominational Christian ministry ran by a guy named Bill Gothard, or was previously ran by a guy named Bill Gothard. Started in the 60s or so, and they got kind of famous on TV because the Duggars.
Yes.
18 kids and counting, 19 kids and counting, 20 kids and counting. And then they had some controversy in their family. Their oldest son got into a lot of trouble. And come to find out he's a pedophile. He's been convicted. They started a new show called Counting On. Actually, it ended when they found out he was a full-on pedophile. I don't know. Long story with that.
Yeah.
Let's mention, we're not necessarily here to talk about the Duggars. It's important to... it's impossible at this point in popular culture to talk about the IBLP without mentioning the Duggars.
Yep.
But we're not necessarily here to talk about the Duggars. As far as I can tell, they're one family who was a part of this group.
They just were popular and in the spotlight for a while.
Yes, and it's said that they help teach and help lead some in this group. So they're not just some random member on a pew here. And we should mention this group is not a church. It is a ministry separate of churches. They encourage people to go to go to church. This is not in place of church. And their former leader, Bill Gothard, does not consider himself the pastor. However, it's almost a parachurch type thing. So let's go start. We always talk about, start from the beginning. So let's start from the beginning. What was the beginning of this?
So in 1961, Gothard founded this group as a youth outreach named Campus Teams. And their big focus at that point was helping teenagers and their parents, right, to make good choices through sharing strong biblical standards, right? Which, makes sense for the most part.
So I mentioned the Duggars. So the kind of origin story for them is that Jim Bob Duggar, we all know he's the father of the family, former Arkansas state representative. I'm a state senator. I know he's a state representative. His famous story was that when he was in high school, some people at church invited him to go to one of these seminars that Bill Gothard did, and that's where he heard this. So it started out as this campus teams, very similar to organization of Campus Crusade for Christ and some other things you've heard of before. So Bill Gothard, he actually went to Wheaton College, well-known, conservative university. He later, he got his bachelor's there, his master's there. He later got a PhD from Louisiana Baptist University. And I looked into this. I assumed because he's kind of a famous preacher type person that maybe this was an honorary type thing, but it was not.
Right.
He actually did a dissertation there. So he's the author of a whole bunch of books. I seen you put down a stat here of 150 books bearing his name.
His Twitter claims 150 books.
And I can see that because this organization that he built up, the IBLP, published a lot of things on basically Christian living, how to live your life, how to live as a Christian. What most all of them were about. They also, dug into education. They were big proponents of homeschooling, that sort of thing. But his dissertation was actually one of the books called The 49 Commands of Christ. Notable to me is that I noticed that you had found a link to where he was a notable alumni at Louisiana Baptist University. But I noticed the link you put down there was actually from the
Did I?
The Internet Archive.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, well, what is that about? So I went and looked at Louisiana Baptist University's website, and I noticed that under the notable alumni, they now list significantly less number of alumni than they used to.
Right.
Bill Gothard is no longer on their list as a notable alumni. Many other people are no longer on that list. Now they only list about 5 or 6 people when there used to be a list of 20-something. I found that very interesting that they had decided to no longer list him that way. And then one more thing, I'm going to let you bring this up because I think you just really were very interested in this. So what was the other thing Bill Gothard founded when we're talking about Bill Gothard? So
after, I'm looking for his book, but I don't think this is it. This is called The 49 Commands of Christ, but I don't think that's the right one. I will find it somewhere and maybe read it before we do our teachings episodes. That'd be smart of me. So after he left IBLP, maybe even early on, there was a little bit of overlap, but for the most part, and we'll, I guess, talk about this later on as well, he founded Embassy University, which is...
Tell us about Embassy University.
It's a free university.
Hey, right? I'm for free education.
It's not really education. It's something, right? It's a very charismatic group, right? In which he teaches a lot of repetition of Bible verses. Trying to pick my words carefully here, Matt.
Repetition.
You and I have already had thoughts on this. And he even goes so far as to instruct people to say specific verses every night before you go to bed, as you're going to sleep. And if you do that for so long, he will give you a degree.
Yes. Up to a doctorate, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the goal. So it's not so much about studying subjects and writing papers to show that you know the subject, to demonstrate your knowledge. It's not so much about labs or going to classes or lectures. It's studying the scripture right before you go to bed, and somehow you recite it in your dreams.
Right.
I'm not sure how you can even do that, but
yeah.
But this will help you learn the Bible, and if you know the Bible well enough, then you're educated enough.
This will help you learn the words of the text. Does not help you learn the Bible.
Okay. See that distinction. And I would point out here that if you will look at learned people in the Bible, one, all the ones reading about in the Bible, the canon wasn't complete at that point.
Right.
But all of them that are learned in the Bible knew the scripture they had at the time, but they also knew other things.
Right.
They were not limited to just that.
Yeah, I was. So did I send you St. John of Damascus's an exact exposition of the Orthodox faith on Audible the other day? It was either you or Ted.
You did send it to me. I did not listen to it.
Yeah, no. But you should, because speaking of learned men, right, who knew other things other than the Bible, he goes into great detail about cosmology, right? And he explains how the sun and the earth and the planets and the stars all move in the sky. And he is very, very detailed. It's incredible to see how smart these guys were that were writing.
And when was he around?
The 700s. Late 600s, early 700s.
It's interesting because the church executed Galileo over this, right?
The Catholic Church, yeah.
Because
but that's not in our notes. So
no, but I was at the museum
yep.
this last week.
Yeah,
the Perot Museum, and they talked about Galileo and how for 1,500 years it was accepted scientific proof that everything in the universe revolved around the Earth. And while he wasn't the first one to say it, Galileo was a proponent of, everything revolves around the sun.
Right.
And I recalled that he was executed for those beliefs. Yep. That was not in the presentation at the museum, which I found not cool.
Yeah.
But, okay. So he's president of this Embassy University. Mm-hmm. They have a very alternative education vibe going on. And
right.
That's something we're going to talk about more, even in this history thing, and definitely go to the social episodes, is alternative education. He's real big into alternative education.
Yeah.
So that's the founding and origins.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good, this is where it started. So next part, we're going to talk about expansion and growth. We're going to go through the timeline, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good.
All right. Well, y'all join us for that part.